plans that address student outcomes and student support. These include the Student Success and Support Program Plan, the Student Equity Plan, the Institutional Effectiveness Plan, and several others listed here. And these plans, likewise, aren't necessarily well aligned and coordinated with each other, and they all have slightly different reporting requirements. The multiple overlapping programs and plans make for a fragmented and inefficient approach to student success and student support. The bottom of page 8 provides some information about student success, specifically degree and certificate completion. As you can see, there are disparities in completion rates by race and ethnicity. There are even greater disparities by students' level of preparation, underscoring the importance of English and math proficiency in student success. Page 9 has our recommendations on student success and support programs. We agree with the administration's assessment that more student support funding is needed to help students with diverse needs succeed at the community colleges, but we think that the proposed funding could be more effective with an alternative approach that provides more flexibility to colleges through a student support block grant. This would allow colleges to combine funds from these various categorical programs and increase their ability to provide the types of services that students need, without duplicating the program administration, accounting, data collection, and reporting required for each separate program. The legislature could establish overall objectives for the block grant, such as improving student outcomes for all students and eliminating disparities among subgroups of students, with particular attention to improving outcomes for students who arrive unprepared for college-level English and math. You could adopt an allocation formula that's based on enrollment as well as indicators of need for service and progress toward meeting program objectives. And with a block grant approach, you could also streamline planning and reporting requirements for the colleges. That concludes my comments for this agenda item. Happy to answer any questions.
Chancellor's Office.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chancellor's Office is supportive of the Governor's proposed augmentations for the Triple SP program and the student equity plans. Our feeling is that we have partnered with the legislature and with the Governor's Office in recent years to implement key provisions of the Student Success Task Force agenda, the goal of which was to really, I think in recognition of some of the demographics that Ms. Hyman shared, where so many of our students do come from disadvantaged backgrounds and first-time college-going backgrounds, to really change the way colleges act in a holistic manner, to get in every new student, to give them an educational plan, assess where they are, and come up with a program that suits their needs and gets them in a deliberate fashion onto the road to their program completion, whatever that goal may be, whether it's a certificate or a transfer to a four-year institution. And I feel like the funding increases that we've had in recent years have really done a good job in changing those conversations on the campus about how it's everyone's responsibility to ensure student success for their students. Student equity plans is a new funding item for our campuses this year. We're just getting those new plans in this year from the colleges in regard to what they're doing, and I think we're seeing a few hiccups in regard to that, which I think is to be expected. It's a new program. Many colleges they're being asked to perform research to assess what the achievement gaps are in their campuses and devise plans to address those gaps. So in the first year, we're seeing that colleges are doing that. They're starting to spend money on getting those researchers in, on studying the issues, hiring counselors, tutors, embedding tutors as need be, to try to get students on the road toward completion. But we think that we don't want to lose the momentum that we've gotten so far in terms of pushing these changes out onto the campus. So we are supportive of the governor's proposal to continue funding them.
Bad timing. Okay. Thank you. Any questions from this panel? Yes, Mr. Chavez.
Mr. Troy, I appreciate the focus you've been doing on student success, and as you say, you don't want to lose any momentum. But I'm looking at the LAO's report. and I'm wondering, do you see any validity to the block grant approach that they're suggesting?
It's not impossible that over time, once we feel like we have done a good job in terms of really changing the campus climate around student success and getting everyone assessed and getting them an education plan and changing the culture of the colleges to be more focused on completion, that we could look at an issue, a change like that. I think right now we feel like we've spent a lot of time and effort into trying to shape the budget around student success to work with colleges to kind of get that momentum building, that we would not want to interrupt it at this time. But it's not impossible that at a future date we could take a look at that, at a proposal like that. From the
Department of Finance, you represent the governor, right? Since you handle his paycheck, his checkbook. The governor really had a great argument for local control funding and flexibility, recognizing the difference in the school districts across the state. I think it would also be similar to looking at community colleges in the heavily urban areas of Los Angeles versus one, let's say, up in Redding, California. Do you see any validity to continue the governor's vision on local control funding in the community colleges?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a kind of principal component of the administration's policy in terms of new funding going out to community colleges, is to provide funding that, while targeted, is also flexible so that the districts and colleges can meet the unique educational needs of their students and regions, recognizing that all the needs throughout the state are different. So funding has been kind of invested in these programs, that the Student Success Program and the Student Equity Plans, kind of they're targeted, but they're also flexible in terms of how the colleges can use those funds to best meet the needs of their community. So yeah, we absolutely are supportive of providing flexible funding, while also kind of targeting it towards goals or areas that would improve student outcomes.
Yeah, so would I. I think when I look at it, I think in a prior life, we used to have a term, we said, we understand a lot of activities, a lot of little chickens running around the ground, but what about the results? What about the golden egg? Who's actually giving us what we want? So...
Yeah, and Mr. Chavez, to your point, as Mr. Dazan mentioned, these categoricals that we're talking about in this item are pretty flexible. And particularly the student equity plans, it really puts a lot of impetus on the campuses to identify the achievement gaps that they face. So what happens in Los Angeles may be different than what happens up in Butte, and that's the local control is very much underpinning, I think, this initiative.
Okay, I'll stop now, but I just think we need to look at more deliverables and showing some successes at the community college level. There's a lot of effort on the education committee. I'm on K-12, because of Common Core, which I support, laying the standards so kids are prepared to go on. So you won't have 90% of your population coming here not able to do math or English, get that back where you should be. And so you'd be able to be more demanding. So I think that's where we're trying to go. And if you listen to the committee last night in higher ed, that was an emotional meeting last night. I've sat in higher ed now for 3 years, and they were flaming on what they wanted to expect from the universities. So I think it's just a word of caution you may want to pass on to look at that.
Oh, I can, and I'd say that we're a system that takes accountability very seriously, and I think through our development, which we did on our own, of the scorecard, which assesses each district has their own scores card that what assesses their momentum points that their students are making over time. That's available for the public to see. We've even gone so far as to develop a wage tracker, so you can look at how graduates from our programs are doing in terms of the labor market. So I think we're big believers of accountability, and I think we put our money where our mouth is.
Why don't you look the LAO's recommendation? Having ran a state agency, I can tell you, if you have a state agency a program going on, often it becomes not what is that program doing. It's just that Mr. Smith's been here for 15 years and he's going to retire in 5, so we can't kill that program until he retires. So you're doing it for the wrong reasons. from my experience in federal and state government, it's often, it's really hard to refocus them to go probably in the needs of the organization. Okay?
Okay, thank you. We're going to bring up the next panel on the same topic. Excuse us for a few moments. Please have a seat. Yeah. Okay, first we have Estela Mata Benjamin, Professor of Education, the Co-Director of the Center for Urban Education, University of Southern California. Okay.
Thank you very much. I provided a statement, and if you don't have it, I have extras here. As I was introduced, I'm a professor at the University of Southern California, and I also co-direct the Center for Urban Education. And the reason why I am here is to speak about the student equity plans and the student equity funding for community colleges. Our center, since we were founded, has been very concerned with how our system of higher education, not only in California but as well as in other states, can be more successful in creating equity and outcomes for historically underrepresented students. And to talk about the student equity plans, I want to first provide a state-level context. In California, by 2020, the jobs that will be available, 67% of them will require some type of college degree, whether it's an associate's degree, a baccalaureate, or higher degree. And right now in California, only 36% of adults have a certificate, an associate degree, or a baccalaureate or higher degree. So we're looking to 2020 for a gap, a skill gap of 31 percentage points. And the reason why I bring this up is because the student equity plans are not framed to focus on what the needs, the workforce needs are for California. I also want to point out the LAO's office provided the data on community colleges. We have to keep in mind that Latinos, which is our largest growing population in California, 70% of Latinos who are first-time college students start at a community college. But many of them, as you saw from page 8 of the LAO's report, are not doing well in terms of graduation. So I mention all of this because one of the concerns about the student equity plans, even though they're called equity, they're not required to have any kinds of metrics of outcomes. And so when you lack that clarity, it's very difficult to assess progress. Now, this is not necessarily the fault of the Chancellor's office. In fact, it's really no one's fault. What the problem is that California is one of the very few states, I think the only other one is Michigan, that does not have statewide college attainment goals. And we do not have an attainment goal in terms of what percentage of our population should be college educated by the year 2020 or 2025. Texas has projections of 60%. Maryland has 55%. Here in California, we have decided not to set college attainment goals. And the problem with that, and I am very respectful of flexibility and local control as a faculty member, I do not wish to be told what to do. But I also think that we have a responsibility of thinking about the well-being of our state. And so one of the weaknesses that I see in the student equity plans, and let me just say that I believe that the Chancellor's office is in agreement with me, and I met with them this morning. So this is, I believe that many of these things could be addressed. But we do need to set, if this is about equity, we need to set equity goals for in those areas where we are experiencing the greatest gaps in outcomes. And I'd like to just go to my next point, which is the issue of focus. We don't have a vision for the student equity plans right now. And as an example, I'd like to mention the Governor's Innovation Awards. I'm sure most of you're familiar with them. Well, the Governor's Innovation Award, the format was really ideal for both respecting flexibility and control, but also providing a vision in that those funds were focused on only three things. Increasing completion of the baccalaureate in 4 years, reducing time to degree, and improving transfer. I'm suggesting that for the equity plans, we need to address the biggest equity challenges that our community colleges are facing, and that is reforming remedial education, creating clearer and more structured pathways to degrees and to transfer. And the third thing is that I don't think that we're going to be able to change the outcomes laid out on page 8 of the LAO's report unless we dedicate more attention to the professional development of faculty and staff and administrators to educate the students of the 21st century rather than the students of 1965. And the equity plans, I believe, provide an opportunity for doing that. So I will stop here. The only other thing I wish to add is that even though I wasn't planning to speak to this, I noticed that in the proposed budget, EOPS, Puente programs are being reduced in terms of support. The LAO has recommended that they be integrated into a block program. And while in theory I support the idea of a block program because it makes it easier for community colleges to plan and to have a more comprehensive approach to their reform, I think that we need to remember why we have those programs. And those programs were specifically because our colleges were not serving students, African American students, Latino students, and other underrepresented students well. So if we move to a block funding, I hope that we will put safeguards to protect the interests of those students who these programs were intended to serve. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Barbara Barron? Barron. California Edge Coalition.
Yes. So I'm Barbara Barron with the California Edge Coalition. Our coalition is a coalition of business, labor, workforce organizations, community college organizations, social justice organizations. And for over the past decade, my board, the LA Chamber of Commerce, the California Manufacturing and Technology Association, the AFL-CIO, and so on, and as well as lots of other stakeholders and practitioners in California and elsewhere, have recognized that we will not significantly improve student success rates in the community colleges without making really a quantum leap in the share of underprepared students who successfully complete the gateway English and college-level English and math courses. Right now, by the community college's own estimates, somewhere between 70 and 80% of entering students are not college ready. That is, they're assessed as needing remediation in either English or math or both. And of these, fully 2/3 of remedial math students never complete a college-level math course, and roughly 60% of remedial English students fail to complete their gateway course. So it's hard to see how we can move the needle on student success if most community college students begin their college careers underprepared and drop out before they make any significant progress toward their educational or career goals. That's the bad news. The good news is that in this decade that we've all been working on this, we've learned a whole lot about how to improve what the community colleges call developmental education. We know now that there's lots of things we can do that'll make some kind of improvement, but we also know that there are a few high-impact practices that can make a real difference. And notably, what these high-impact practices have in common is that they significantly reduce the time that students spend in remediation. This is really key. There's been lots of research, such as numerous well-respected studies by the Community College Research Center at Columbia University, that have demonstrated that the more remedial courses students take, the less likely they are to complete a college degree, certificate, or transfer. And in traditional models of remedial education, where students move sequentially through levels, there's just multiple loss points. For example, students can complete one remedial course and then just drop out before they get to the next one in their sequence. And that happens more times than not, way more times than not. And so how are the high-impact approaches different? They seek to minimize loss by reducing those loss points and reducing the time that students spend in remediation through one of a variety of strategies. For example, one is to simply help students avoid remediation altogether by changing the way that we do assessment. And, for example, using sort of multiple approaches to assessment, including high school students' overall GPA, which is an incredibly good predictor of how they're going to do. Using diagnostic assessments, we also can pinpoint the specific weaknesses and supplement that with tutoring while we mainstream students into college-level courses. A second thing we can do is redesign and shorten remedial course sequences. So there's innovative programs all over the United States, including many in California, where faculty are completely redesigning math and English sequences to wring out redundancies and better align them with what students need to know for the kind of college pathway that they see themselves on. For example, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching Statway is a 2-semester pathway designed for underprepared math students who don't want to go into STEM fields, and so it's based on statistics rather than calculus. Third thing we can do is contextualize remediation to a student's vocational or academic instruction. And in all cases, we can provide proactive student supports that are integrated with the instruction that we provide. And so why do we call these high-impact strategies? I'll give you some examples of outcomes. The Accelerated Learning Program at the Community College of Baltimore's Gateway Accelerated English course improved completion by 29%. Washington State's well-respected IBEST program, which contextualizes remediation into vocational education, students are 35% more likely to complete. And in California, the Community College Research and Planning Group's rigorous evaluation of the California Acceleration Project found that students' odds of completing a transferable college-level course were 1.5 times greater in regular accelerated English models, 2.3 times greater in high acceleration models, and in their math courses, students were 4.5 times more likely to complete. And I want to emphasize that these programs did not have cut scores, so that students at almost any remedial level were brought into those. So these are just examples. There's lots of different approaches that have demonstrated spectacular results. And we have lots of exciting pilot programs in California. What my coalition thinks is that our task now is to really bring these to scale. And my favorite way of illustrating this problem is to tell the story of a young woman that we met. She was the first in her family to graduate high school. She went to City College in San Francisco and was told that she tested 3 levels below college ready in math. which is the most common entry level for math students. And her counselor told her she needs 6 semesters of remediation. She almost dropped out. I mean, it was 3 levels, 3 years of remediation she had been told she needed. But a counselor got her into one of a tiny pilot programs at CCSF, and after 2 years, she not only completed all her remediation, she had an AA degree and had been accepted as a junior at UC Berkeley. So not all students are as lucky as Lulu, which is this young woman's name, but particularly because the numbers of slots in these pilot programs is so small. Bringing these programs to scale isn't just the right thing to do for our students, it's also cost-effective. Columbia's Community College Research Center found that Baltimore's program provided a substantially more cost-effective route for students to pass a gateway course. The upfront costs are more expensive as faculty rewire curricula and assessment tests and so on, but the long-run payoff is substantial. And as such, it seems to the EDGE Coalition that this is a great use of one-time Prop 98 money where we can invest to make these upfront investments, to rewire these courses, and then we can reap the benefits in terms of both our students and our the finances and of the taxpayers of the state of California. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Fabio Gonzalez, counselor at San Jose City College and the president of the Extended Opportunity Program and Support Association, EOP&S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Honorable Chavez. I am Fabio Gonzalez, president of the California Community College Extended Opportunity Programs and Services Association. Our association represents students in the cooperative agencies, Resources for Education, which is another program within EOPS, which is care for single parents who are receiving cash aid. And we also represent the Extended Opportunity Programs and Services. I think my colleague did an amazing job in presenting to you the kind of population that we serve within the system. But even the LAO provided some even more critical data that you should really be aware of to the extent of the population that we serve. We extend our gratitude to the governor for his tremendous efforts to support the California Community College system. However, our association is critically concerned that we have been overlooked on his proposal once again. Also, my reasons for being here today are to share with you our rich history, which it was started in this building. Our limited resources that we have been trying our best to serve the increased amount of students, as you heard earlier, of the population that we serve. And also how our programs, EOPS and CARE, are the model programs on serving the most vulnerable population of students in the community college. We brought with us a number of students that are willing to share their beautiful stories of success and how they are actually beating the odds within the system. In front of you, I think you have a couple of handouts that I provided earlier. And one of those handouts is to talk about the historical perspective of EOP&S and CARE and how we were created back in 1969 as a birth of the social justice movement in California. We are at every community college in the state of California. The state established the CARE program as a unique educational program geared toward the welfare recipients who desires job-related education to break the dependency cycle. EOPS, who are welfare-dependent single heads of household, are eligible for CARE, which offers educational support services to students as they acquire the education, training, and marketable skills needed to transition from welfare dependency to employment and eventual self-sufficient. I heard earlier that you're talking about accountability. I heard earlier that you're looking for ways on how we can spend these dollars correctly and really show success. Well, you have a model program in front of you that have been in existence for over 40 plus years and has a track record of creating results. But you also need to understand the population that we serve. Our population is not students who are coming to us at college level math, or college level English. They're not coming to us with honors or even high school diplomas. The population that EOPS serve is the most vulnerable population, that is the most difficult. And even if you throw a blanket, a safety net to the whole population in the community college, those students are still going to follow through. They're going to fall through the cracks because no one is giving them the attention that is required for them to be successful. The need that our students have is unique. They come to us from single parents. They come to us as foster youth. They come to us as veterans that are trying to find a place to live. They're trying to find a place on how to be successful, that they are wanting a second chance that they haven't been given, even though they serve their country. They are looking for the opportunity to make it into higher education. That's the population we serve. We talk about low-income students, but we don't understand that low income is a general term. It encompasses a bigger population of students. Now we also have AB 540 students who have been added to the population that we serve. We have disabled students. We have CalWork students. I heard also earlier that we're very critical in collaboration, in making sure that the dollars in these programs are not being seen as silos. Since the existence of this program, under our guidelines, we have a specific guidelines that say that you must implement advisory boards. Those advisory boards minimize duplication. It increases collaboration, which means that we have been embedded into the DNA of the community colleges. And we are there to represent our students, to work in finding methods on how to best serve the student population that is in dire need of support. And I just want to leave you with a couple of good, important ideas that you need to know. EOP&S is the first program in California that established this comprehensive educational planning. Our students are required to have a comprehensive plan, are required to enroll in 12 units, are required to see a counselor 3 times to 4 times to 5 times per semester, are required to submit academic progress report. We track the students very closely. We are responsible to provide reports to the states, and I think you have another handout in front of you that shows you how many of our students we serve, who are those students, where do they come from. The handout that you have in front of you also gives you the benchmarks that we have, which by so many researchers out there have told us these benchmarks are important to make sure that these students are successful in their education at the community college. The effectiveness of our program is basically within the structure of our outreach efforts, in making sure that our students are receiving attention, support, one-on-one, to make sure that they have a counselor that they will not see for 5 or 10 minutes, that they will be able to connect with that counselor, and that counselor will be able to provide above and beyond and in addition to whatever services the colleges are providing. EOPS is basically one of the leading programs in the community colleges when it comes to student equity. As a matter of fact, we are the student equity model in California. We are the leading experts at our respective colleges with regards to student success and equity. Our program was created under these guiding principles, which make us the student equity program. Our respective campuses At our respective campuses, we don't participate in student success and student equity committees. We lead them. We are the experts. We are the ones that they are calling to provide the feedback on how to best serve our student population. We lead the courageous conversations that many don't want to hear. We don't promote social justice. We fight to make a reality at our respective colleges. Our program staff do not stand by the sideline to collect reports on inequities. We address them. Today, our system has adopted student services practices that our programs have successfully implemented and mastered for over 40 years. Please take a look at those handouts. I have also incorporated in there an impact study that we actually conducted back in 2012. And it shows that students in EOP&S were higher than non-EOP&S students at all outcomes that we have, that we measure. One of those you heard today is the 30 units and 70 units. We exceeded that within 3 years. We exceeded persistence and retention within 3 years. But also understand this critical component. The population that EOP&S serves are coming 3 levels. They're already behind a year and a half before they enter our program. and we still get them to 70 degree within 3 years. I want you to ask your question while you're looking at that. Brief description of current funding levels today versus 2008, 2009. EOPS had $106 million back in 2008, 2009. CARE had $15 million. Today, we have less than $76 million, and we're still serving over 70+ thousand students across the state. I know there have been a lot of conversations with regards to local control and funding and so forth. We want to let you know that our association have taken a very strong opposition against block grants, have taken a very strong opposition against those practices, because when the funding formula is challenged locally, the most vulnerable students are the ones, the poor students are the ones that suffer. There's too many competing priorities taking place at the colleges, and you have heard that from many other different presenters. Those don't work when we have students that need the support and we have model programs that are able to execute the services immediately. Some programs within the state of California and EOP&S have received minimal resources from student equity, even though it is written within the guidelines. But we haven't been able to receive any other funding locally. The program has been left alone to basically surviving its own. In the meantime, we're abandoning the students that are the most vulnerable and they need the support from you. Just in close, you just heard from previous presenter that there's never going to be a lack of eligible student in our state that meet the requirements for EOP&S. As a matter of fact, it's increasing. Not only do these students benefit from EOP&S and CARE providing assistance that allows them to achieve their educational goal, but also our communities, our cities, our state, and the nation as a whole will benefit from an educated student workforce who go on to become productive citizens, who go on to become researchers, who go on to become our legislators and senators here in California. We ask that you take a very close look on what model programs are best on serving this vulnerable population, and we ask that you don't put us and overlook us, because we need your support to continue providing the success stories that you're going to hear later on today. So thank you.